Tuesday on the Just Baseball Show, as always, it's brought to you by BetMGM. We've got a couple notable injuries in the American League that we have to ID, one to a hitter, one to a pitcher. The top prospect in baseball is really struggling, so it's time to have the conversation about when the other conversation may come. So we're conversating about a conversation. The NL Central is as wide open as it's been in a long time, and for a long time, this has been a wide open division. Long time, not really. It's been the Cardinals, but like it opened up last year and it's more open this year. And then at the end, we're going to do a minor league check in. So we've got 7 hitters and I think 7 pitchers that we're going to go through and tell you why they are near the best in the hitting and pitching department of the minor leagues. Again, presented by BetMGM. Jack, Aram. One of my favorite things now is every time Mason Miller is introduced to a new fan base.
Yeah.
So he strikes out Volpe, Soto, and Judge. He's pumping 102, 103. And I got a couple of texts. Who is this MF on Oakland throwing 103? Why is he stuck in Oakland? Who is he? I've never heard this name before. And then I go on Twitter and I see all these Yankee fans being like, who the fuck is Mason Miller? Guess what? This is what he does. And Aram, you have an 80 grade fastball on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's 104, but it's not only that, it's like got good characteristics to it too. It's funny because I get it. Like you could be a very passionate baseball fan and have no idea who you couldn't name 3 players on the A's. Like I wouldn't blame you and I wouldn't take away your baseball fan card because again, like why would you watch them? It's funny though now seeing you can tell like the waves of which he has made, like when it's a big fan base that they're playing against, the social media, like I feel like momentum and just you start to see his name pop up way more. Like I didn't even know the schedule today. I was typing away on the updated mock draft that we're putting together. We're also finishing up the Tigers farm system, and I didn't realize it was A's Yankees. But I noticed that Mason Miller kept popping up on my Twitter every time I'd scroll in there more, and then I was like, that's why. Big fan base just found out who Mason Miller is, or at least found out how good he can be.
Yeah.
It's kind of the perfect circumstance, right? Where he's on the most anonymous team in Major League Baseball and he is the biggest freak of all time, but you only see him in the 9th inning when they're winning most of the time. So that's also not that often. And he seems to just catch people by surprise. I still am a little surprised that not everybody knows who he is, though. I will say, like, I get that you may not be able to name 3 A's players, but I just feel like he's gone viral so many times now.
Yeah.
They talk about like re-viral, you know, how like all the time when you're on social media, like scrolling through Reels or TikTok or whatever, a video that you saw maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago will go like re-viral. I feel like that's what's happening with Mason Miller right now. Like every time he plays a big market, he like goes viral again, and then we like rinse and repeat. That said, I love it. It's fun. It's crazy, but I guess it's just the A's effect, huh?
You know what it is? So for me, it's a lot like if Seattle came to town and somebody learned about Matt Brash for the first time. And you know, it's the pitching ninja favorite ilk type thing, but the reality is like we are in a highlight era of baseball and 103 is the one that gets clipped and distributed. And the nasty slider with 20 inches of horizontal, like Paul Skeens mentioned that, like that's the one that's going to end up on Pitching Ninja. Matt Brash ended up on Pitching Ninja every time he threw because he threw a very unique pitch and everybody knew who Matt Brash was. But it feels like every time Mason Miller ends up on Pitching Ninja, more people are learning who Mason Miller is. And I don't know if it's a thing of, oh, he's plays for the A's, so I'm not going to bother to remember the name. You should remember the name because this guy, like regardless of team, is going to be one of the better closers in all of baseball because he throws 103 miles an hour.
Well, so I was thinking about the other side of it too. East Coast bias. A lot of people are probably in like REM 2 by the time he's coming into the game. So it's not only is he buried on the A's, he's also coming into games in the 9th inning of a West Coast game that most people can't care less about because it's the A's. So from that lens too, like he's just not really pitching in front of a lot of people, but it's really cool because one, even as frustrating as the A's are, like it's just another example of how much talent there is in this game and why I think we do need an expansion at some point. We just did like an imminent big leaguers episode on the call up, and there's so many guys that are so ready and so talented, like Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, just on Norfolk alone, but we could go across the minor leagues and list tons of guys have nothing left to prove in AAA. I would love to see two more big league teams, but then you see teams like the A's, and people might say, "Oh no." No, I'm telling you, there's more than enough talent to make the A's really good. They just have their own issues, which ties into the idea and the thought that I had is should the I hate saying this, should the A's just trade Mason Miller?
So I saw Reese White, who I know is a friend of both of ours and does great stuff over at Prospects Live. He said that
No
he,
way.
yeah, he tweeted that out after that outing in New York yesterday. He said, um, he doesn't hit arbitration until 26. You could get an absolute haul for him. Should they entertain doing it? And
Yeah.
my thought is, hell yeah, they should
Yeah.
entertain doing it. They should do it at this deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Reese is on it with that. And I look, you want to keep whatever piece you can have, but he's come with some injury history. That's why they moved him to closer. Um, he's must see TV, but also that's why I think you could get a haul for him right now with the control, with the fact that you always have that backup of like, hey, he's healthy now. We can move him back to the rotation like Crochet. I mean, that wouldn't shock me either. If he starts to, if his body starts to adjust and he's able to stay healthy. I mean, remember, this is a guy that found out he was diabetic as an adult,
Yeah.
and like that's a whole, he didn't know why he was losing 30 pounds at a time and why he felt weak and couldn't get up half the time. Like now he's able to take care of himself and is taking the medication that he needs to take and is able to stay, I think keeping the weight on and everything. And look at the result. He throws 104 now. So you never know what could happen. I think there's a lot of teams that would take a chance on that. And the A's could, compile all the talent they can get right now.
So if you don't know the backstory, go listen to Mason Miller's conversation with Aram on the call up. That was what, beginning of last year, right?
Yeah, it's titled. I had a couple of people tell me that they couldn't find it. It's titled like minor league baseball's most interesting pitcher, Mason Miller. So if you don't see Mason Miller right away, because normally we say like Mason Miller joins the show, I think that
Yeah.
one I titled a little bit different because at the time, I knew nobody would know who Mason Miller is.
Right.
Like the only reason that we got him on the show was I put out a tweet that was basically, I think it was all whoever threw the most 100 plus mile per hour fastballs that season. So 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the guys from the Ballinger group, who does a great job of just helping us interview players and get people involved, and especially in the minor league front, goes like, "How'd you know that about Mason Miller? And like, do you want to have him on the show?" I was like, "Absolutely."
Mm-hmm.
And so literally it was because at that point nobody was even talking about him at all. He was a D3 guy, transfer, all that good stuff. But yeah, it's just a really cool and unique thing. And again, yeah, that story, check it out on the call up. I think we plugged it earlier, but if you didn't hear that episode where we plugged it before, sorry. If you did, sorry, we're plugging it again. But
Yeah.
it's an absurd story that, I mean, the only reason he found out, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, was because he had to, I think, like get drug tested and or needed to provide a sample of something for a job, like a desk job at a
Yeah.
hospital. And then they came back and were like, do you know that you are diabetic? Like that's how he found out. So just things like that are those stories just never get old.
It's insane. And the 411 on him is 4 years at Waynesburg University,
Mm-hmm.
D3 school, 4 year D3 guy, used his COVID year to go to Gardner Webb, shoved, second round pick by Oakland, and fireballs his way up to Major League Baseball. So absolutely insane. But yeah, I'll link that episode in the episode description. I want to jump over to Triston Casas here. And Triston Casas hit the IL with a left rib strain. I don't know if I've ever seen a rib strain, but I guess like I could understand what it is. I don't know. Have you ever kind of run into this? I actually, like, as weird as it sounds, I think I had a strained rib after I got into my car accident in 2022. Like I kind of had whiplash and my ribs kind of pinched and then it created like a strain because one side kind of pulled a bit and it hurts to breathe, it hurts to move. This might be a lengthy absence for Triston Casas, and we haven't gotten like detailed results from an MRI, which was apparently supposed to take place on Monday, but the initial diagnosis was rib strain and he's on the IL. For a team that is pitching as good as they are, they just lost their best hitter in an offense that is borderline anemic right now. I know they had a decent weekend in Pittsburgh, but I mean, with Tyler O'Neill on the shelf too, like they've got nothing going on.
You think it's the pitch clock because guys are swinging too quickly now?
Probably.
They're averaging like 2 swings per minute now. It might be the pitch clock.
Yeah, pitch
Uh,
clock. I'm in.
no, so I've broken a rib, but I didn't know you could strain a rib. I fell off a bird scooter. I didn't get
Ouch.
T-boned like you did. Like you were a victim. I was just an idiot. So be careful on those scooters, by the way. I don't do those anymore. Those are scary. Hit a little pothole, ribs were donezo. Definitely was in a lot of pain, like Casas said he's been in. But this, I didn't know you could strain it. I assume it's adjacent to an oblique type of thing, which is always a long time. I
Mhm.
think we're seeing too, like it's a little bit less extreme and less of a big deal because you can just come back and most guys eventually do. But I think we're seeing also kind of a subdued hitter version of these guys are too powerful nowadays, that these guys are creating so much torque in their swing that we're seeing a lot more oblique injuries, I think, and rib adjacent type of injuries. These guys are absolute animals. A lot of times this happens early in the season. I guess if it's going to happen, you'd rather it happen now. He comes back and finishes strong. But it does stink because, by all accounts, Casas does a really good job of taking care of his body.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, there's just nothing you can really do about it. It also stinks because he was really heating up. He had started slow. And then as this Red Sox team was performing, he was a big part of that. And over his last 15 games, he had an OPS over 1,000. So I am worried about how this offense kind of stays afloat with Casas, who was performing as their second best hitter, and Tyler O'Neill, who was performing as arguably the best hitter in Major League Baseball.
Right.
Like those are two big blows, and some of their other guys are not really playing the way that they should be, and we're not even mentioning Trevor Story going down too. It's really unfortunate what's happening in Boston because they had the makings of a and they still do, but they had the makings of a really positive surprise story and kind of to be that surprise team this year. You
Yeah.
also lose Pavetta. Um, I think it says a lot that they're even fighting and staying afloat right now. It's frustrating because I hate seeing a team that looks like they could have something a little bit special and magical, just have their kneecaps kind of taken out from under them so early.
Yeah, it stinks. And I guess the answer in the meantime is like, hey, Rob Refsnyder has been fine, which is like good, but he's not Triston Casas and he's not Tyler O'Neill. You can appreciate that Masataka Yoshida is ever so slightly starting to heat up. But he's been kind of in and out of the lineup the last, 5, 6 games or so. I'm interested to see when Vaughn Grissom comes back. I think that is
Yeah.
going to be a shot in the ass that they really need.
Mm-hmm.
And Grissom is a guy that I think the casual baseball fan has kind of forgotten about
Mm-hmm.
because he came up. He did such a good job in replacement of Ozzy Albies in 22. And then he was entirely blocked in 23. He was, one man's trash. He was another man's treasure in the sale deal. And we haven't had a chance to see him. I think when this guy hops back into an everyday role, if it's at second base, you're going to see a really good baseball player. And I'm excited to see
Yeah.
Vaughn Grissom get that opportunity every day, knowing that he's got a path to play every day. And he's going to be a piece that they really lean on as O'Neill works his way back from this concussion. And I mean, Casas, we'll see how long he's out for.
I love that you mentioned Grissom because I think it's so easy to forget about him. And that was a big piece to get back. They ate some money and traded Chris Sale. Like Grissom was someone that I know they're very excited to have. And it might take a little bit of time. Like he's been shaking off some rust in AAA, but now he's hitting three games in a row, multi-hit game last time out. They've been mostly running him at second base. But what's interesting in the Winter League, he played a little bit of left too, but he's going to be mostly playing the infield because right now, I mean, think about what they're going to be gaining. Like, I think you bring up a really good point. Right now, they've been getting nothing from Emmanuel Valdez, who's hitting a $159 with 70 plate appearances already.
Yeah.
David Hamilton hitting a $182 with 36 more plate appearances. And then Bobby Dalbec, I know he's not playing second base, but he's been playing the infield for them as just another bat in the lineup. And he has been putrid. I think he has like one hit and 33 plate appearances. So I don't know how good Grissom's going to be right out of the gate, but I can guarantee you he will be better than what they've been getting. And oh, by the way, Rafael Devers is hitting a $188 as well. Like, he's going to hit. But I'm glad you mentioned Grissom because that really helps the bottom of the lineup, which right now with Rafaela's struggles, I know he's going to settle back in. He'll be okay. And he's always going to give you defensive value. But when you're looking at a back end of the order right now, that's Valdez, Dalbec, Rafaela. I mean, that's auto out. And Grissom's a guy that you put in the back of the order. When he's right, he can really hit. It's great bat to ball and sneaky pop. But even when he's not great, still going to give you like 260 and grind out some ABs and just be a better player than what they're rolling out right now.
Yeah. And if you're unaware of the rehab progression, I think it's kind of important to lay that out because you can look at the game logs in the minor leagues and you can really guesstimate when a guy is on the cusp of being activated. And it's hard. It's really hard to look at and be like, okay, when's it going to happen? Sometimes it feels random. It's not really random. I like that you mentioned he played back-to-back days. They had a doubleheader on Saturday. Worcester did. So Grissom DH'd his first 3 times. So that's a guy that like is just trying to get his footing under him. Then he hops in the field. He plays second base. He plays half the game. He got 3 plate appearances. Usually the Grissom progression is 3 plate appearances, day off. 3 plate appearances, 3 plate appearances, day off, full game. And once that full game comes, then it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
So with Grissom, he played 3 plate appearances on Friday, sat game 1 of the doubleheader, played full game 2 of the doubleheader Saturday, sat Sunday. If I were a betting man, full game Tuesday, full game Wednesday, and then it's a matter of time.
Yep.
So you could be looking at end of the week.
I think you're totally right. I love that you brought that up because even in that full game, was a hammy injury, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Stole his first bag in that full game.
There you go.
So I think that was the game where they said, okay, you're loose. Play like you're in the bigs, right? Like play free. But in those first few, it's like, don't steal, ball in the gap. Don't go 100%. I think now they're saying go 100% and see how you feel. And then we'll go from there. So I agree with you. I think we could see him back pretty soon. And I think Red Sox fans deserve, I mean, I know they're not going to be, there's not going to be a line around the corner to go see Grissom, make his return. Yeah. But I think they could use some positivity and just say, okay, here's a player that could be a piece of our future, and he's back and he's in the lineup, instead of just watching Dalbec and Valdez and whatever it may be right now in the back of the lineup.
For sure. Lack of positivity in Houston, Texas. Cristian Javier hits the IL with neck discomfort. Hunter Brown was kind of shoved into a spot start. Tough that Hunter Brown is now a spot starter. It's tough, man. But he was okay. 4 innings, 3 earned. Javier hits the shelf. So now you're looking at an IL rotation of Luis Garcia, Framber Valdez, Cristian Javier, Lance McCullers, Jose Urquidy. I'll take that over a rotation of Verlander, Renel Blanco, Hunter Brown, JP France, and Arrighetti. They'll roll with that 5 for now. But dude, this team is experiencing Murphy's Law in the worst way right now.
Well, at least they have a really good back end of the bullpen.
Hader. It took Hader 30 pitches to get a save on Saturday or on Friday?
He is an 8.38 ERA. Ryan Presley has an 8.31 ERA, and Brian Abreu has a 4.91 ERA. I know that you guys just talked about, I know Peter said he's not worried about them at all.
He said he was at a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. I said I was at like a 3.5.
I was foaming at the mouth, like wishing I was on that episode. I am terrified of this fucking team right now. And this is coming from a person who was saying, I think they're going to dominate. They got the bullpen. Their rotation is fine. The lineup is going to be what it always is. No, I'm terrified of this team, like in a bad way. Like I'm really worried about them. It's nobody's fault other than just like you kind of said, Murphy's Law, and just, a little bit of, I think, unfortunate circumstances. This team, everyone could hit. Jose Abreu could come back and be 2020 Jose Abreu, and I still think I'm worried about this team. I really am, because, okay, I do think that you're going to see Hader turn it back around and Presley turn it back around, and I even think Abreu will turn it back around. That's 3 guys. You need all 3 of them to turn it around. If they don't do that soon, they cannot blow saves anymore, because if you are fortunate enough to win a start right now from JP France, 7 ERA, by the way, or Hunter Brown, 9.68. If you're in the driver's seat in one of those games, you have to win that game, because most of the time that these guys are throwing, you're playing from behind. So if you are leading in the 8th inning of a Hunter Brown or JP France start, or a Spencer Arrighetti right now, you got to hold on with where they're at record-wise. If you're giving those games away, it's going to be plenty more now where you're playing from behind. Really, the only days that they have a potential advantage from a starting rotation standpoint is when Justin Verlander's on the mound, but a lot of those days they're still going to line up with somebody else's ace, so they'll probably still be at a disadvantage. And then Ronel Blanco should be their scheduled advantage every fifth day right now with the way that he's throwing as their kind of number two, quote unquote.
But that can
But
change, man. Like, I know he got off to a great start. I know he threw a no-hitter in his season debut, but like, he's a 30-year-old rookie and you're banking on this guy being this good all year. You can't do that.
no, no. So yeah, and I'm sorry. I guess maybe that's why people like the show, because one day, the Just Baseball show is telling you that they're not worried about the Astros, and then
No,
the next day they're
yeah,
telling you that they're petrified. But it's different. That's why it's three different perspectives here.
right.
And that's why the three different perspectives is always so fun. And I genuinely do hear where Peter was coming from on that. Because again, most of the time through the first week and a half, I'm like, it's the Astros. They're always going to figure it out. It's the Astros. They always figure it out. But there's certain things that you just can't overcome. And this much injury to your rotation, a little bit of underperformance, and then a lot of offensively, and then a lot of underperformance in the bullpen can only survive so much. It's early, but we put it out on our Just Baseball Twitter. I don't think a team that has started with this record has ever made the playoffs. If there's a team that can overcome it, sure, it's the Houston Astros. But yeah, I'm gonna go against my own co-host here and give you a little bit of a differing perspective on the show. I'm terrified. I think they are in some deep shit right now, and I think it could get uglier and uglier very quickly when 3 out of 5 guys in your rotation are a scheduled disadvantage by a lot at this point. You don't have anyone that can close the door when you do somehow have the lead. And by the way, the 2 guys that you are looking forward to every fifth day, you mentioned one's a 30-year-old rookie. The other one's coming back from an arm issue and is 41.
41. Mm-hmm. That's an issue. I am on pins and needles waiting for every single Framber Valdez update. He threw a 30-pitch bullpen on Saturday. Okay. Let's see how that progresses. They need Framber back in the next 3 weeks to a month. They need Cristian Javier to have slept weird, and that's why he's on the IL, and it's a minimum stay. If those two come back, I feel good about my 3. But if we get a worrisome update from on the Framber front, or if we get a worrisome update on a Cristian Javier front, I'm going to start elevating for my 3. So I think you laid out where I can get very soon. I think it's hard for me to agree with Peter that it's a 1, because at the end of the day, we are already 22 games in, 23 games in. And I get that it's early, but at the end of the day, you only have so many of these. You run out of time. We see so many teams run out of time at the end of the year. And in the AL West, I know that Seattle has started poorly. I know that the Rangers haven't started up to expectations. But you can run out of time in a division that has 3 good teams. Yep. And I worry that they're going to be sitting here in mid-September, end of September, saying, shit, man, if only we were better at the beginning of April.
I don't even know if it's just run out of time. It's also just, how does a team like this get extremely hot when, again, you have 3 out of 5 guys in your rotation getting shellacked?
And
it's not like it could just turn around.
I think the answer is put up 40 runs in a weekend. I think that's how they get hot. And they can absolutely do it, because Altuve's hitting 380. They have Jordan and Tucker in that lineup.
Yep. Another way is call up AJ Bluebaugh. I think I said that right.
I think so.
I know more about his arsenal than I do how to pronounce his name. But AJ Blubaugh. That should be Bluebaugh.
I think
right?
it's Bluebaugh. Yeah.
Bluebaugh. He's shoving. And he just got brought up to AAA, and I'd imagine that he gets up there pretty quickly. He's probably their best pitching prospect. I was going to make a joke, how far are we away from a Forrest Whitley start? He's in the big leagues right now, by the way.
Yeah.
But AJ, I think, may end up throwing for them relatively soon at the big league level, coming off of 6 1/3, 1 run at no walks, 8 Ks in AAA for Sugarland against Round Rock. He also threw well at Albuquerque, which is really impressive. 5 shutout at Albuquerque. I mean, that's one of the toughest places in minor league baseball to pitch. So look out for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting an opportunity relatively soon. But they don't really have a ton of other options beyond that.
No, I mean, Colton Gordon is, I think, their other option right now, and I'd rather go with a hot hand than a guy like Colton Gordon. They don't have a good system. Let's make that clear. They've got a big league ready bat in Joey Loperfido, but at the end of the end, like they've got a couple others that are fine. Jacob Melton is
Yeah.
a top 100 prospect, but he's back end top 100. Houston is closing their window like soon, and their window's
Mhm.
still wide open, but their window is closing somewhat soon. So they got to make this work with the guys that like all the names of the people that are going to be on the last great Houston Astros team. Jumping to another prospect, and everybody knows this name. Jackson Holliday is 1 for 30. And I know we talked about this for a minute yesterday. And I posed the question to Peter, when can we start having the conversation? And he said time. We had about a 10-15 minute conversation about it on the call up on yesterday's show. So you can go listen to that in
Mhm.
detail too. But I'll ask you the same question. And, if your mind has wavered in the last 2.5, 3 hours, let me know. When can we start having the conversation? Because Jackson Holliday is 1 for 30 on one of the best teams in
Mhm.
baseball. You've got a lot of young guns playing their ass off right now. Colton Cowser looks like one of the better outfielders in the game as it stands right now. Jordan Westbrook has been one of their best performers. Not to mention Gunnar is Gunnar, Adley Rutschman is Adley Rutschman, and the vibes are immaculate. And then you've got the consensus number one prospect in baseball whose vibes couldn't be more off. And I know that he's, probably latching onto that young clubhouse and they've been great to him. And I know that they all really love that guy. But man, like, when is enough in the stat line?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough conversation because he's so talented. He's done it at every stop and he's earned, an extended look.
Yeah.
The default answer is always, oh, look at all the different guys that have come up and struggled. It happens all the time. It's a big leap from AAA to the big leagues. Totally agree. I know you agree too.
Yeah.
That said, there is big league struggles and then there is just being blatantly overmatched.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, Jackson Holliday has been blatantly overmatched. And I would have never expected that. We saw him in spring training. We've seen him against really good arms look really comfortable. Right now, he does not look comfortable. And I talked about it on the call up, but just kind of calling back to one specific at bat in his last game on the 21st, where he has the bases loaded in the top of the sixth with one out, and he has a full count. It's left on left, sure, but it's a full count, and he takes a fastball like right down the middle, couldn't have been more middle
Yeah.
for strike three. And at that point, I'm like, okay, he's really in his own head at this point. And can you blame him? This guy is one of the most anticipated debuts in Major League. Yeah, I think would say in the last 10 years in the Major Leagues. I mean, I can't really think of many more anticipated debuts than what we're seeing from Holliday. And then you mentioned it on the call up as well, like wearing Ripken's number and the fact that he's joining a team that has World Series aspirations and the young core and the number one overall pick and Matt Holliday. Like, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And he's handled it with nothing but class and like is handled it as well as any 20-year-old can.
Yeah.
That said, I think you're finally seeing it catch up to him a little bit because in the other spots, I don't know if he really had much adversity really at any stop that could really mount on him. This is the first time we've really seen adversity mount on him. And I can't imagine being the 9 hitter in a playoff lineup that is mashing pretty much other than me. And I'm the guy that everybody is looking at, that everybody's anticipating, that they, are basically there's lights and cameras on me at all times, even though I'm the 9 hitter on a team that is performing really well, except for me. That's got to be really damn hard, no matter how good you are mentally. And Jackson's one of the best when it comes to handling all of those things. He's human. And I see it more on the mental side. So that's why it's really hard to answer it from a statistical standpoint. I really think it's anecdotal. It's not like, we kind of were throwing out at bat numbers. And the more I've thought about it, it's like, I think it's really just a feel thing. I think you've got to be in that clubhouse. You've got to be talking to Jackson, which they are.
Yeah.
And, if I'm seeing more 3-2 fastballs down the middle taken for strike three, then those are the like little anecdotal things. And then maybe the way that he's going about his business, if he looks like it's starting to really weigh on him, then I think you consider it. But right now, you give him another week to 2 weeks.
Yeah. I that does make sense to me. Um, I think that's a really important note that you pointed out when it comes to everybody else being great in this lineup. Because if he was in the White Sox lineup right now, or if he was in the Marlins lineup right now, if he was in a lineup that, as a whole had like a 90 WRC plus, he doesn't feel like the runt of the litter. He's not the problem. Like he's one of six problems in the lineup. It's really hard as a human being to be the runt of a litter in a group. Like, it
Oh
is
yeah.
not something that I'm okay with at all. When I feel like I am like the odd man out when it comes to success, I get very, very self conscious.
Oh
And,
yeah.
like, even as a guy who is willing to look into cameras and say, yeah, it looked like Skeens was throwing 110. I got blown up. Like, think about how supremely confident you need to be in order to admit that as a 20-year-old kid. And now we fast forward a month and a half, and like, I don't know. This would test me more than anything in the world, and I'm sure he's being tested more than he ever has in his life. So, rooting hard for him. And
Yeah.
I mentioned this on the call up. Like, I really hope he just has a 3-hit day and then a 2-hit day that follows, and he's hitting 200 in a moment, and we're good.
Yeah. The last thing I'll mention, and this is just the most like puzzling aspect of it, is how much he's getting blown up by fastballs.
Hmm.
That's the part that I'm just not used to really seeing from him. Like, yeah, he's never really been a guy that's just going to get totally blown up by heaters. He's been on them at every stop, and velocity's never really been an issue for him at all. But you're looking at these last 10 games or so specifically, he's swinging and missing at fastballs in the zone at like a 54% clip to swing. And I know it's a small sample, but in 10 games, if you're swinging and missing at the majority of fastballs you're seeing in the zone, you don't have a chance. And that's why I was a little bit nervous seeing that 3-2 take, because it's like he was basically just seemed like either sitting breaking ball or just hoping for a walk. He's going to keep seeing fastballs. He's going to keep seeing fastballs elevated. The approach has always been something that has helped him, but so far he has been more expansive and a little bit more aggressive.
Hmm.
I think he's pressing. I think it's a natural just seeing the best competition he's ever seen. And then I think it's a little bit of a timing thing that is the first, maybe mechanical issue he's really had that's contributed to a slump in the early going. Um, he's always, I've seen a bunch of videos of him working in the cage. He's a guy that likes to do like the really early load and hold it.
Yeah.
And I imagine that he's going to try to just get ready as early as possible and go from there. But yeah, I just hope he trusts his abilities and gets back to it, and I'm sure he will. And it's helpful when you have a dad that did it for so long, and I'm sure had his own struggles and spurts, and that's why I think that the Orioles ultimately are going to give him some more runway here.
Yeah.
But I'd say if this continues for another 2 weeks, you got to look at the bigger picture and say, hey, maybe he's got to go to AAA and kind of just get his confidence back up again. But I'd give him another week and a half, 2 weeks at least.
Yeah, I was saying on the call, I think 20 to 25 plate appearances. I think 20 to 25 more plate appearances, and then you reassess, and you think maybe even 30 to 35. So we're going to get into the National League Central and then wrap up with a minor league kind of rundown of the best hitters and pitchers. Okay, before we get into the National League Central, it is wide open, and it maybe becomes more wide open because of the Brewers' injury issues. DL Hall and Wade Miley. I might as well just throw Wade Miley into this too, because Wade
Mm-hmm.
Miley just hit the injured list with elbow inflammation. Wade Miley, of all people, elbow inflammation? What are we doing? Sprained knee for Hall. Have no idea how long that'll put him out. Miley, elbow inflammation. We've got no idea how long that'll put a guy like that out. They joined Jacob Junis on the injured list, not to mention Woodruff is going to be there the entire year. And then I scroll down and I look at AAA, and then I remind myself that Robert Gasser is on the injured list too.
Yep. Yep.
They have a 3-man rotation right now. And like Tobias Myers could start, Bryce Wilson could start, but as of right now, they're turning to Freddie Peralta, Colin Ray, and Joe Ross. Is Aaron Ashby ready to go and start a major league game again? We'll find out. Is Jansen Junk going to start a major league game? We'll find out. With how amazing the start has been for the Milwaukee Brewers, they have been dealt injuries to Jefferson Carroll, Robert Gasser, DL Hall, Wade Miley, Christian Yelich, Garrett Mitchell. Unbelievable that they have survived all this the way they have.
Even their first round pick, Brock Wilken, took a.
Yep.
Thank God he's okay. took a fastball up and in, and I messed his face up pretty good.
I forgot about Devin Williams too. Like,
Oh,
what do we
yeah,
got
that
going
guy.
on here? Like, this is insane what they're doing with this many guys on the shelf.
It's amazing. And you just wonder how long it's gonna last though, and you wonder if they might end up bringing up Carlos Rodriguez even at this point, who has a 6.7 ERA in AAA. Like they need warm bodies, which
Yeah.
is always scary when you're in the desperate just who can throw innings for us mode. And they're not the type of team that's just gonna go out and like trade for pitching. I don't see them trading a prospect for pitching right now. Like it's just not going to happen. So what do? I don't know. On the DL Hall front too, I don't know if it was the knee or what it is, but his velocity just steadily was going down. And like in that last outing, he averaged 91.7 on the fastball. Like that's significantly down. Again, I don't know if that was the knee. I don't know what the deal is, but that's definitely a concern. So hopefully he comes back and is throwing hard again. It's just always been, health dependent with DL Hall. And it's just really rough. I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, how do you find arms? Jacob Mizrowski ain't going up there anytime soon. That guy's still walking the world. Crazy stuff, but he's not ready. How do you? They need like bodies. I don't know what they do.
I mean, they strike me as the type of team that would go out and sign Zach Greinke or Rich Hill to give him 6 starts. If we're being honest, they may also wait for the minor league free agent opt out cycle. I could see a world where they wait and, like, if a guy like Eric Lauer, who by the way worked 5 no hit with 8 punch outs, if a guy like Eric Lauer has an opt out and he opts out, maybe they bring Lauer back. Like, I could see that kind of thing happening. I think the first round of minor league free agent deal opt outs is like mid May. It might be end of May, but I could see them trying to weather the storm for the next 2 weeks and then going to grab guys that opt out.
Yeah, I mean that is like the definition of down bad. Like that
But
is a
well,
tough position to be in,
it's tough, man.
and they're 14-6. Which is why the division is pretty much wide open, right? Because we're talking about a team that legitimately has to field arms. Like you and I might be able to apply,
Yeah.
and they're in first by 2 games, 2 games ahead of the Cubs, who is a half game ahead of the Reds, who is a game and a half ahead of the Pirates, who are really scuffling now. It feels like this could be anyone's division. It wouldn't surprise me if the Cardinals got hot and made a run and climbed up to the top. It wouldn't surprise me if the Brewers hit a wall because they don't have bodies and fall down, though I do like what they've got going offensively. I mean, this might be the most fun and chaotic division in baseball, I feel like, in one way or another. Like, could you think of a division that may end up being more with more parity and more chaos? I think you could look at the other Central and, of course, the NL East, or excuse me, the AL East,
The AL
excuse
East.
me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think there's just like a more welcoming, wonderful chaos in the NL Central that
Yeah,
maybe
I
no other
think
division quite has. Maybe the AL East, and that's about it.
I think the AL Central is like stupid chaos, where it's like, how bad can this get? That's my feeling about the AL Central. Although Cleveland's playing great and Kansas City's been fun to watch, but I mean the Twins have kind of been sucking, and I'm worried that Cleveland and Kansas City kind of come down to Minnesota's level, and that creates a 3 horse race, and Detroit's level, and that creates a 4 horse race. So I'd be worried about it being like a negative chaos in the AL Central. I think the AL East is the answer, but it's been that way for a long time.
Yeah.
The NL Central, the new blood is in, which makes it more exciting for us, and it makes it more exciting, I think, for the broader baseball fan, because you can watch an Ellie De La Cruz light the world on fire and keep his team in contention for a division. You can watch William Contreras, who has quickly become a top 3 catcher in the game, will his team to contending in a division. What do the bats in St. Louis have? What does Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn have? Like, is it going to be the wily vets that keep themselves in contention? I haven't even mentioned Michael Busch standing on his head for 2 weeks. And like, you've got the Cubs here. And hey, how many big starts does Shota Imanaga make? The appeal of the NL Central this year passes up every other division in the game for me. And I'm very excited to lock in on
Mhm.
what they got going on here.
I kind of like it because so many of them have like interesting arms, but like you're trying to figure out how that rotation,
For
settles
sure.
in, and the Reds being a perfect example of that. Pirates as well. Like the
Dude, I
Pirates,
haven't even mentioned like, hey, what does it look like when you've got Jones, Skeens, Keller on back to back to back days?
and that's what's going to help the Pirates who are faltering now. Like you can see them kind of turning it around, and at least from a pitching perspective, settling in and being able to hang around, the last wild card spot and be competitive. Again, the team that I'm most worried about at this point is the team that's in first. So they've got a
Mhm.
little bit more buffer zone to try to survive.
I
The
will say
Cardinals probably too, but
yeah, I am worried about St. Louis. Their vibes seem terrible. Like
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
I'll take any opportunity to say that I think Ollie Marmol is just not the guy, and like just clearly is not the guy. Did you see? Did we talk about it when he kind of like grabbed that
That
A's?
security guard in
Yeah, what
Oakland.
the hell was
I don't
that?
think we ever talked about that. I understand the frustration from him because the security guard got in the way of him attempting a challenge and he couldn't challenge, he couldn't get it in
He
time.
didn't get it in it. Yeah, but dude, it was like half a second. Like
Yeah, I don't know, but like grabbing him and shoving him out of the way and then like reprimanding him after the fact, like I don't know. And apparently he's like a really liked guy from players that have played with him or have
except
been
for Tyler
coached by
O'Neill.
him. What?
Except for
Except
Tyler
for
O'Neill.
Tyler
Yeah.
O'Neill and except for Wilson Contreras, right? He like I mean, dude, we talk about him in a negative light enough. He's going to get another extension. So we should probably just shut up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he already got extended already,
He
right?
got extended going into
Yeah.
this year after he laid an egg last year.
Yeah, I don't get it. But regardless, like I think with Sonny Gray back in the fold, I feel a little bit better. They have so many pieces in the upper minors as well. One that we just talked to, on the call up with Thomas Ajazi, who
Mhm.
they could end up packaging. But they also have other arms in the upper minors. They have a lot of different arms that they could go to in AAA, from Robertsa to
Graceffo.
Tink Hence is even not that far away in AA. Roby's off to a slow start, but that could be a guy that gets a look. They also Cooper Jerpy could end up being a bullpen
Mhm.
piece, right? Like they have a lot of different guys that you could look at. Gordon Graceffo's thrown well.
Graceffo, yep.
A lot of different guys that could come up and plug in to replace Michaelis and whoever else in there. So like I just think they have a lot of different ways to get out and like wiggle out of their situation. But
Yep.
when I look at you know the Brewers, I'm like, how do they get out of this? I like them long term, but right now, how do they get by? I think the Cardinals can find a way to piece it together more. But that said, like we're talking about a last place team compared to a first place team in the division in which we're more concerned about. That shows you how much parity there is in this division and why, I think this is going to be wonderful chaos the rest of the year. With I think us probably changing our perspective on who's going to win that division every single month.
For sure. All right. We want to wrap with 7 hitters and I think 7 pitchers, 6 or 7 pitchers that we're really going to dive into in a minor league check-in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pose these guys. I'm going to give you their baseline stats, and I want the elevator pitch from you on all of them. We'll start with the minor league leader in WRC plus in Carson Williams with the Tampa Bay Rays, and we're starting with the hitters. Carson Williams is well inside the top 50 prospects in baseball, according to justbaseball.com. Carson Williams, at this point in 12 games with Montgomery, is slashing 392, 436, 686 with 9 extra base hits, 9 driven in, 4 bags already. What has Carson Williams, the Rays shortstop prospect, done that is different?
Not a ton, which is the crazy part, but it just shows you how much a little adjustment when you're freaky talented can make all the difference in the world. I think he's always pummeled fastballs, and he's just continuing to do that this year. Recognizing spin. You don't need to hit 300 against breaking balls if you crush fastballs and you have power. You'll crush hangers. The difference is, can you lay off of the borderline breaking balls? Can you not give away strikes, on those secondary pitches? Because you spin on a breaking ball and you get ahead in the count, they got to eventually go back to the fastball. If they locate 3 breaking balls, you tip your cap. They'll probably hang one of them. That's been the difference. Chase rate's at 15% this year. Crushing fastballs, he's been marginally better against breaking balls, period, just hitting them. So you compound hitting breaking balls a little bit better, chasing them less, you're going to have better numbers overall. So the classic, I think, scouting report isn't working the same way because he's maturing. He's 20 years old. He's always had crazy power. He's a phenomenal defensive shortstop. And the question's always been the hit tool. Now just hedging some of his weaknesses a little bit and just improving and naturally maturing, I think we're seeing what Carson Williams can be, which is the future of the shortstop position for the Tampa Bay Rays, which thank goodness they have that, because I
Mhm.
feel so bad for them given the circumstances that they've had to deal with over the last year for mostly for the fans. But yeah, Williams is a guy, like, he's not going to be Wander Franco, but he could get up there and he could be kind of what they wanted Willie Adames to be. And Willie
Yeah.
Adames ended up being a really good player, but I think he can be what everyone thought Adames was, which was great defender, a ton of power. And yeah, it might be 230, 240, but he's going to walk a ton.
Okay.
I think he ultimately can be there, what they hoped Willie Adames was going to be. And this seems like the beginning of that starting to come together. He is going to strike out, though, and there may be some tough stretches, but it looks like it's starting to come together for the 20-year-old.
And that's okay, man. Like, Cabby is a great time buyer. If they
Mm-hmm.
traded for Jose Caballero and was like, all right, you're our guy for the next 4 years, I would get tense. But if
Yep.
Caballero's their guy this year and they can turn to Carson Williams to break camp next year, the Rays are back at the shortstop position, which is very exciting. Jump to Milwaukee. Mike Bovee stinks in Double A. 0 for 7 to open up his Double A career. Having said that, in 13 games in High A, Mike Bovee, who was what, first round pick out of Nebraska Omaha last year, second round pick.
Second round pick, I
Because
believe.
Wilkin was their first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mike Bovee, their second round pick out of Nebraska Omaha last year. 13 games in High A to open the year. This cat hit 553. That's a real number. 21 for 38, 8 driven in, 13 walks, 5 punchouts. Welcome to the Mike Bovee Show. Who is this cat?
He was one of my favorite bat to ball guys in the draft, but the problem was he just, well, one, you didn't have him against like top flight competition, but you could see that the swing would translate. Two, doesn't have a lot of defensive value. And three, the question was kind of how much power is going to be there. Those are all still valid questions. I think what he started to answer now, though, is that hit tool plays, professionally, clearly. He doesn't chase, and he's just really hard to get out. But he also doesn't have a home run yet. So he's like a weird kind of throwback, not that fast, but just hits everything. It's almost like Luis Arias. Like, he's not going to be that good bat to ball wise, but he also hits the ball significantly harder than Arias. But it's like this weird, you expect him to be more athletic with that type of profile, but when you just hit and hit and hit and hit everywhere you go, you can't really argue against it. It's a really unique swing that works really well. And, I think the Brewers have been pretty good at identifying these type of guys, and they've been drafting pretty well over the last few years. I don't know where he fits in defensively long term, but that is a really efficient and clean swing, and he's going to make a lot of contact everywhere he goes.
Is this how we'd be talking about Shonowell if he wasn't shoved up to the major leagues?
Easily. Easily. Yeah, I think they have a lot of the same things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just unfortunately, Bovey's been actually treated properly. And I'm not going to, like, pull out the violin and shovel for a guy that gets to go straight to the big leagues. I'm
No,
sure
I
a
mean,
lot of guys would love that.
his wallet is very happy. Like,
Yes.
his checking account is very, very happy right now.
But at the same time, like, his batting average isn't. So yeah, it's a tough spot. But I think if Bovey can elevate a little bit more in terms of, like, just, he hits it in the air, but just elevate in terms of creating carry,
Mm-hmm.
you have a really fun piece here and,
For sure.
and a really unique player.
Another guy, low A with the Cleveland Guardians right now, their first round pick from a year ago, Ralphie Velasquez, is someone that I was really amped up about because he looked like a fire hydrant, and he passed the eye test with flying colors. He just looked like the next left-handed power bat that's going to make a ton of sense and more advanced than any high schooler should. And then he gets you really going at the beginning of this year. Ralphie Velasquez through 12 games with the Lynchburg Hillcats, hitting 375, 3 doubles, 4 homers, 15 driven in 12 games. He's got an 1136 OPS. He might be too good for low A as an 18-year-old.
Can you believe that? I am seeing, you probably remember, for the prospect heads that are listening to the show, and especially if you listen to the call up too, we were gassing up Xavier Isaac early last year.
Yeah.
This feels like Xavier Isaac all over again, where it's probably first baseman, not the best baseball, but Velasquez is in a better position physically than Isaac was right at the draft, but not the best baseball body. And then you start to see them just look more athletic, settle in more, mature physically, and then all of those abilities shine through. Velasquez probably isn't going to catch. It seems like they want him focusing on first and just hitting
That's
Say
fine.
focusing on hitting while playing first, I should say. It's working. It's a really advanced swing. He crushes baseballs. He's already hit a handful of balls 109 miles an hour. He's 18. I think he's hit safely in almost every single game this year, except for besides the first two, or no, sorry, the second game is the only game he hasn't hit safely in this year. Otherwise, he's hit safely in every single game, and more than half of his games have been multi-hit contest. He has 5 hits in his last 2 games. He is probably ready for high A. I'd imagine it'll come right around his 19th birthday, and I think the Guardians got something special here. Really, really fun bat. I don't see him slowing down anytime soon either. The pull side power is already there, and I think he's going to keep growing into more.
Damn. All right, jumping to the Minnesota Twins organization, Double A now. Guy OPSing 1219, in large part because he's getting on base at a 508 clip. Oh, by the way, he's slugging over 700. Emmanuel Rodriguez is a top 50 prospect in just baseball's top 100. But this guy in 14 games with Wichita, the Double A level, has walked 20 times. That's what he does. He brings the boom to 10 extra base hits in 14 games, 5 doubles, a triple, 4 homers, has driven in 10. He's 8 for 9 in the stolen base department, which is something I was not expecting in the slightest. If this guy's swiping bags with how much he walks, that's a new element that maybe you weren't even anticipating.
I mean, so what I'd always said, I think it's in the write up too, is like, imagine if you could take Max Muncy and make him athletic, and that's of course if it all works out offensively. But I think it can. People were concerned about Rodriguez because like, oh, he's striking out at a 25% or 30% clip at this level. What's he going to do at the next one? I think he's one of those guys that's just going to strike out at the same clip at every single stop, which is around 25 to 30%, but he's also going to walk at like a 20% clip, or maybe as he gets higher, 15% clip, and crush baseballs. Like if you make a mistake, he's not going to miss it. He toes the line of passive, but he's gotten better at picking his spots and being more aggressive.
Yeah.
This guy runs a chase rate at like 12%. Like that's insane. But he hits the ball so hard. He doesn't chase at all. And he's athletic. He can play 3 outfield spots. And like you mentioned, he's stealing bags now. It's to all fields. The fact that he is not really seeing his strikeout rate skyrocket in Double A, I think is a testament to who he is. At 21 years, he just turned 21. He's going to get into a lot of deep counts. It's kind of Edouard Julien-esque, where naturally he's going to strike out a lot because he gets into deep counts, but also naturally he's going to walk a ton because he gets into a lot of deep counts. And naturally he's going to run into a lot of home runs because he sees a lot of pitches and finally gets a mistake and doesn't miss it very often. And I think we're seeing him do it at the Double A level now. He still comes with risk, but I think it should quell some of those concerns.
3 more hitters. Edgar Carroll with the White Sox. Spent the entire year in Double A last year. People soured on him because he was, 20 years old in Double A, the youngest catcher in Double A, him and Jefferson Carroll.
Skip Taillé.
Yeah, Skip Taillé. He had a 730 OPS. Boo-hoo. How is this guy a top 100 prospect? 14 games into repeating Double A as a 21-year-old. He's hitting 326 with 5 homers and 19 driven in 14 games. He's got an 1124 OPS. My favorite thing about Carroll is 20-year-old in Double A. He's not going to punch out at a clip over 20%. He's not punching out at a clip over 20% right now either. 9 Ks in 54 plate appearances. He's going to be a bat to ball guy. And if he's hitting for a little bit more juice, we know how advanced he is defensively. That was part of the billing when they got him back in that Giolito deal. I mean, this guy turns into, again, one of the better catching prospects in baseball.
6 homers in 101 games last year. 5 homers in 14 games this year, including a walk-off, or the last one was. I will just continue to be shocked that, not shocked, but not shocked that the Angels traded, literally traded him for
2 weeks of,
Giolito. Yeah, just absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. Regardless, if Carroll, like you said, switch hitter, hitting for more power now, I thought it was the weirdest thing in the world that people soured on him for skipping high A and holding his own in Double A in the tacked ball situation there where he was fine. And then got traded in the middle of the year or towards the end of it. So I think Carroll's top 100 guy for us, clearly, and proving why. The defense keeps getting better. Seems like those really talented White Sox arms in Double A like working with him. They're all throwing really well to him too, and it seems like they have a good rapport. with more power there too. You know, he's not going to K like you said. He's going to walk plenty. I think he's going to continue to see that walk rate go up. He's the catcher of the future for the White Sox, and you know, I don't know how long they're going to keep him there. I think he's probably going to go with the arms. So once Thorpe and Iriarte go up, I bet Caro might follow right behind him in AAA too.
That'd be fun. That would be like the best PR move that the White Sox could do outside of the Campfire Milkshake. Two more hitters. Cam Collier lighting it up in Dayton. Welcome back to the prospect conversation, Cam. Hitting 328 in 14 games, 6 homers, 18 driven in, a 1033 OPS. Collier's leaning into the juice. 6 homers in 111 games last year, 6 homers in 14 games this year. I stole your line.
Same story again, baby. I love it. 2 home runs the other day, both were 108 miles an hour. Guy's got crazy juice. A lot of people soured on him because they thought the body was going to continue to back up. It might. He might play first. It might be a Devers-esque third base, and there's some similarities there. Super aggressive, but crushes the ball, can hit the ball outside of the zone. He's got to cut down the chase. But like, this is a 19-year-old who's performing in high A, who skipped, you know, a lot of traditional levels that you're going to see through the baseball maturation process. Graduated high school early, got his GED, like did a lot of crazy things. He's 19. I think this is another guy that unfairly, you know, got docked pretty hard last year, and it wasn't even that bad of a year. Big power, lots of like 90th percentile of 107.5 so far this year. And he's going to keep hitting the ball harder. I think there's plus power potentially to dream on as he continues to elevate more.
Zach Veen is back, folks. Zach Veen with the Colorado Rockies. 11 games, hitting 342, 4 doubles, pair of triples, a homer, 5 driven in. He's 5 for 5 in the stolen base department, a 1050 OPS. This is the top 100 prospect that wasn't right in 2023.
All the floor is yours, Jack.
The next guy to go 50-50, the only guy to go 50-50, Zach Veen. No, I
healthy.
mean, like,
he's healthy.
He's healthy. And I'm glad that last year proved that he was unhealthy. I think the alarms were going off because he was trying to play through it. And we were like, is he just not great? Now, it turns out he wasn't healthy. So now Veen's healthy, and like that top 10 in 2020 featured Hassel and Veen. Hassel is playing a bit better than he did in 23. But Veen, man, like this guy does look like that top 10 pick, like that top 50 prospect in baseball that we were thinking about.
I'm glad you brought up Hassel from Padres to the Nationals, part of that Soto trade. Hassel was hurt too. So we were able to kind of subscribe to that narrative. Oh, broke his hamate. Now he's healthy. Let's see what it looks like. He came back and looked mostly the same. So you weren't able to really subscribe to that and you know, apply that to the reason why he was struggling. Veen was trying to play through fraying in a ligament in his hand/wrist. And, you know, we kind of saw more and more how it was affecting him. But I also felt like he was tinkering through that too. So he started to get away from his natural swing, tried to eliminate the leg kick to be, you know, more on time. And then he just lost a lot of more power. And I think the reason why that narrative built was he struggled when he got promoted to AA or high A, you know, as a 20-year-old. And then the next year he's hurt. So then it was like, oh, well, he was struggling at the end of last year. And now he's really struggling this year. Maybe he just can't handle better competition. We've already seen now that he's healthy, got that all taken care of, had surgery, I think in June. Came back, played in the Puerto Rican Winter League for a handful of games, was great there, then gets off to the start here where he's already produced 2 batted balls higher than any mark that he's put up in his professional career.
Okay, so you saw him during spring breakout. You saw him during spring training. He looks thicker than he ever has. He looks like an adult playing baseball now.
And the results, 2 110s off the bat. He had not done that before. He's back to who he naturally was with the leg kick, but the posture is a little bit better. And then with 2 strikes, he is still doing that minimal stride thing to make more contact. It seems to be helping him. He's going to whiff because he's got long levers and he's a big guy, but he's managing that, hitting the ball harder now. Absolutely motors. He might be back, dude. And he's doing it in a tough place in Hartford. So I'm excited. And he might be a guy that ends up hitting his way back on the top 100 list. Anytime you're doing new max EVs, after an injury, I can buy that narrative. He's also elevating more than he ever has.
Get this man to Albuquerque. Get him to Albuquerque, and he's going to go crazy. He's going to go video game numbers. All right, pitchers to wrap. Best pitcher you have never heard of is Sean Sullivan with the Colorado Rockies. We're going to stay on the Rockies train. Sean Sullivan at a Wake Forest was Louder's number 2. If you're a college baseball head, you probably know the name Sean Sullivan. If you are a prospect junkie, you probably know the name Sean Sullivan. But the casual baseball fan, you know the name Chase Dolander. You don't know the name Sean Sullivan. And he is off to a hell of a start to open the year.
I mean, the first outing, 6 innings, no earned runs, no walks, 13 Ks is pretty absurd in high A. It's one of the weirder, funkier releases you're going to get, and that's what the Rockies are leaning into. Pretty smart, finally. It's hard to pitch at altitude, so get weird looking, funky, outlier type pitchers, and that's exactly what Sean Sullivan is. He's doing it in the upper 80s, touching the low 90s, and getting a ridiculous amount of fastball whiff because the release point's so low, the extension's great, and it has crazy ride. He's landing his fastball for a strike at an 81% clip and a 51% chase rate on his fastball because he's just elevating it and nobody can lay off because you can't freaking see it. It's crossbody with extension with a weird, like almost sidearm, like low 3/4 release. Yet, from that release, you should be getting horizontal movement. Instead, he gets vert. Hitters their brains can't compute what he's doing. So it's really tough to hit.
So we talked about like the crossfire thing. Imagine if Ryan Walker had a fastball that played well at the top of the zone. And like he's throwing 95. Nobody should throw 95 in the way that Ryan Walker throws, where he's crossfire, he's like totally stepping across his body. He's pretty much turning. It feels like your back would hurt if you tried doing it at home. With Sullivan, he's doing that, but it's taking off like a rocket ship like that. I can't imagine how a lefty touches it. And a righty, like you probably don't see the ball until it's out of his hand.
No, you don't see it. And then the fact that his best pitch is a changeup is just so messed up because then you're just so geared for the fastball and you get the changeup. We'll see if it performs the same way. Deception sometimes can slow down against better hitters naturally, but they've got a big league arm here in one way or another.
Yeah, Dolander, clearly a big league arm. Chase Dolander got roughed up a little bit, I think, in his last start. But, I mean, this guy threw 15 1/3, 27 Ks, 5 walks. He's a rotation mate in Spokane with Sullivan. Dolander looks the part. He looks like the Dolander that I mentioned this on the call up. He looks like the Chase Dolander that could have gone number 1 overall heading into last year's college baseball.
Yeah, before Skeens had his crazy, season, everyone was looking at Dolander as the top, pitching prospect, and for good reason. He was insane.
By the way, I didn't include Skeens on this minor league check-in because everybody knows what Skeens is doing already.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, like just, and you can go on Savant and go check it out.
Yeah, you're fine.
Or just go anywhere on Twitter. Also, you could check out our interview with him on the call up as well. Jack did a great job on that. The only thing with Dolander is the fastball usage has been really high. I think that's more just because he wants to just kind of get in a rhythm and get, confident and just, he's overpowering hitters with it. So like, why go to anything else? Crazy whiff numbers on that fastball. And he's just back to getting the ride that he wants on it. He talked about that in an interview on the call up as well. Before the season, I talked to Dolander and he was just like, I found the mechanical tweak I needed to make. And now I feel like I'm getting more vert on my fastball and I'm commanding the slider better. He added a curveball and he feels like the changeup's really good. So, I mean, that's going to play when you have a plus fastball, borderline plus, and then the rest of the arsenal looks really good. The ball flies a little bit in Spokane, but when you're striking out guys the way he is, and again, I think the secondaries, he's going to start throwing them more when he gets to more challenging competition. 27 Ks, 5 walks, sign me up. The Rockies have, I think their frontline starter of the future here.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Couple other guys. Cade Povich with Baltimore. Povich, lefty. We mentioned it. Max Fried starter kit. Like if you turn him on and do a side by side with Fried, the delivery looks the exact same, and like he even has kind of like the skinny leg, tight pant type thing going on, but it's not overwhelmingly tight. Cade Povich, 4 starts, 21 2/3, 2 earned runs. He's punched out 33 and walked 9 in 21 2/3. Povich, we just talked about it too. He's the guy. He's the first understudy.
Yeah, he's the next guy up, and just to have those guys when you're a World Series contender, and we're just talking about some of these other teams. Talking about the Astros, like who do they plug in now? Bradish, by the way, is going to be back very soon. Just watched him throw in AAA, but just having Povich in there is huge. Seems like things have clicked for him from a command perspective. Even when he's walking guys, it's like an effectively wild aspect where maybe he doesn't execute the 3-2 pitch, but he's not just putting guys on 4 pitches. He's been great. I mean, 3 straight outings with at least 9 Ks. just seems to figure out now how, I think he really figured out this offseason how his stuff tunnels and where to locate it. And it seems like he's working with his backstop, and they're sequencing really well. Seems like he's in a rhythm now. I think he's just kind of figured out who he is as a pitcher and how to succeed. And I think it's going to play at the big league level. I think they've got a back end of the rotation starter here in Povich.
White Sox have a future frontline guy, it seems, and Noah Schultz, 6'9", 220-pound left-hander in high A at this point. 3 starts, 12 innings, 23 Ks, and 5 walks. Schultz, like the ERA is 4.5. It's 6 earned in 12 innings. But what have you seen from Schultz that just furthers the point that this guy could be a future ace?
One of the best sliders in minor league baseball, and commanding it. How does a 6'9" guy command a slider like that? Just command, period.
You're
I
not
know
supposed to. Nobody's
no,
supposed to.
no one that's 6'9" should be filling up the zone the way that he has as a pro. And that's the crazy. And with like some elbow discomfort in between, usually guys come back and then they can't find the zone. He's thrown 39 innings as a pro, and he's only walked 11. Like I honestly think that's extremely impressive. That's a 7% walk rate. Meanwhile, he's striking out 40%. The fastball is mid 90s, runs it up to upper. And the changeup, even, it hasn't been there for him this year, but we've seen it through stretches last year be there for him. So if he gets that changeup back to where he had it last year, he's just going to decimate guys. But I'm just seeing a guy that has a way better feel to pitch than anyone would have expected from a 6'9" lefty who's running it up in the mid 90s and starting to stretch out more. 60 pitches in his last 2 outings, averaging 95, 0.3 on the fastball. But that slider has a chance to just be devastating.
3 names that very few people know. Adam Mazer, your show, dude. San Diego Padres. Adam Mazer, 3 starts, spanning 16 innings, 8 hits in 16, 1 run. It came on a solo homer, 16 Ks, 2 walks. He's the guy in that organization. If they need somebody to go up this year, they'll take their time with Snelling. They'll take their time with Lesko. Now that they traded Thorpe, Mazer's looking the part of like, hey, Padres need a starter. This is the guy that's going to come up, and people are like, do I need him on my fantasy team? Answer might be yeah.
Answer might be yeah. He fills up the zone. You mentioned the 1 earned run on a solo shot. It was 91 off the bat at 38 degrees in Amarillo on an 0-2 pitch.
A joke.
So, like, he really, I think that's a fly out anywhere else. I'm sorry. And not to take that one away from Caleb Roberts, but that's a fly out anywhere else. So that's his 1 run. That's it. Filling up the zone as well as anyone I've seen. Yeah, 70% strike rate on the fastball, 77 on the slider. He commands his slider as well as anybody in the minor leagues. That goes back to last year, too. I have a 70 on that pitch. Curveball filling up the zone at a 68% clip, and a changeup at a 75% clip. He's got 4 pitches that he can throw for a strike 3 out of 4 times and mix them up whenever he wants. And the fastball is mid 90s. I think this is a guy that's probably a top 100 prospect very soon, and could be up at the big league level very soon. Really fun piece that I think is just another success story for the Padres. 2nd round pick, but another great ID.
Who are you, Winston Santos? You just turned 22 years old last week. 15 2/3 innings across 3 starts, 9 hits, 1 run, 24 Ks, 4 walks. 22-year-old in high A. Last year, he had a 6.3 ERA in high A. Hi, nice to meet you.
Isn't this gay? This is why I love this sport.
Yeah.
What other sport, like, do you go from getting shelled in high A to legitimately dominating at the same level the very next year? It's not like he's 24. He just turned 22 a week ago.
Yeah.
That last outing was a blast to just cut up the video on. 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 12 Ks. Fastball is at 96. And the craziest part is it's got crazy ride to it. It's averaging 19 inches of vert. And he's just filling up the zone too. Slider looks gross, absolutely gross. And then he's mixing a pretty good changeup too. Rangers might have something good here. And it's just crazy, this farm system, man. Like, even as they call guys up, even as they make trades, their scouting continues to be impressive, especially, and development continues to be impressive. Santos is a guy that I expect to continue to do this.
Yeah, man. Texas has a gem here, and you sent me the video, and the only thing that I said back was like, delivery is beautiful.
Easy.
It is so clean, so easy. He uses every ounce of his body, like, very, very impressive in a clean and efficient way. That's the thing. He makes the most out of his delivery, and it's not necessarily high effort. Last guy, Canadian in the Mets organization, 20-year-old Jonah Tong, 7th-round pick out of Bill Crothers Secondary School in Markham, Ontario, in 2022. Jonah Tong last year got off the complex for 3 starts. He had a 6 ERA across 21 innings. Now, 12 and 2/3 with St. Lucie, 5 hits, 1 unearned run, 27 punch outs, 5 walks in 12 and 2/3. Those are Paul Skeens K numbers.
That's a 56.3% K rate, dude.
I think Skeens is at 57, but Tong is at 56.
Oh. So Tong, the reason why he was kind of drafted as like a project 6th, 7th round pick, it's over the top delivery, gets 20 inches of vert, and then a good curveball off of that. Mets were intrigued. He was doing that at 90 to 91. Emerges this year, age 20 season, still got the 20 inches of vert. Now he's doing it at 92 to 94. And each start, he's thrown harder. 92.5 the first start, average fastball velocity. 93 the second start. 93.3 the third start. And the whiffs have been there. After never touching 97, didn't even touch 97 in his first start. He threw 78 pitches in the first start. That was the most in a professional career. Second time out, throws 80. And in that outing, sees the velo tick up still and touches 97 for the first time in his pro career. And then does it again in his third outing. Also added a slider. The curveball's always been there. So he's got 3 pitches now that look legit and a fastball with that ridiculous ride now in the 93 range. I'm very intrigued by Jonah Tong. I think the Mets, may have ID'd here and continue to have success with Canadian players. I mean, Calvin Ziegler was looking like a success too before unfortunately going down with another injury. 50% in zone whiff rate on his fastball so far this year is just silly, absolutely silly. Hitters just can't conceptualize the ride on that pitch.
Yeah. I also somehow convinced myself that Brandon Nimmo is Canadian more often than you would think. But Wyoming, I get that it's south of Montana, but you're a baseball player from Wyoming. You're kind of Canadian.
You didn't even play high school ball. So it's
does that thinking make any sense to you though? It's like, you're from Wyoming, you're pretty much Canadian.
It's because of the fact that I think it's an obscure place where we don't scout enough, but Canada baseball is on the rise, dude.
Canada baseball is on the rise. You're right.
So
you know what? I'm sorry, Canada.
That was
but you're welcome, Wyoming.
Anti-Canada of you, I think.
That was anti-Canada, but that was pro-Wyoming. So
yeah,
shout out Wyoming. Sorry, Canada. Get your merch. We've got a whole bunch of new merch. Clay Snowden has been snapping. So go to the link to get your merch in the episode description. We've got a whole bunch of stuff buzzing on the Just Baseball podcast network, including Just Basketball. And the NBA playoffs are going. If you want your updates on that front, I'm pro Brunson. Now that the Bulls have a man in the mirror type offseason ahead of them, I'm all the way in on the Brunson train because he went to Stevenson High School in suburban Chicagoland. So I got Knicks fever, baby. F. Trey Young. Go listen to the Just Basketball guys. What do you got going?
I mean, I'm not paying attention to this Heat series. I can tell you that much. But
miserable.
I'm listening to the Just Basketball show when they don't talk about the Heat, unfortunately. But no, it's a great playoffs, and if you want to tap in, those guys are doing an awesome job. And then we have that mock draft coming out this week.
Yep.
Updated mock 2.0. Been really excited to get that out. That should be out maybe even by the time you're listening to this. And then continuing the team top prospect lists. You can keep up with what prospect lists we put out already by going to the prospect vertical on the website and then seeing top prospect lists by team. We're more than halfway through the league at this point. We're going to be done in the next couple months here, going through all 30. So just keep an eye out for that. And your favorite team is either already done or will be done soon.
Harmon, Peter, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.